Hello and welcome to Timeless with Julie Hartman. What day is it today? I don't even know. It is some day in the middle of November 2024. I'm Julie Hartman, and it is great, as always, to be with you. Now, those of you who watched Dennis and Julie yesterday, or those of you who have been following the announcements on social media, you know that my dear friend and colleague and co-host Dennis Prager took a pretty serious fall last week. And he has been in the hospital, he underwent surgery, and now we are just waiting to learn more information about his condition and his treatment options. And so many of you have reached out to me and to the members of the Prager family expressing your warm wishes and your prayers, and they are so lovely. And I want you to know from all of us that we deeply, deeply appreciate those messages. I'm joined today by a Prager himself who is in town, obviously, for this reason. We wish that he were in town for a happier reason, but nevertheless, we're so thrilled to welcome him in studio. He's been on Timeless before, and he is probably one of the most active members of the live chat, Aaron Prager of AP Unfiltered. Hi, Aaron.
Hey, Julie.
Thank you. You can't hear this, but Sean is playing applause, which you certainly deserve. Thank you so much for being here. You literally came from the hospital to be here to talk with us, and it's so kind of you because, as we were discussing before the show, as difficult as this is for you, members of the family, people like me who are very close with Dennis, there are thousands of people who are so close to Dennis through the screen or through the radio airwaves, and they are deeply concerned. So thank you.
No, absolutely. And thank you for having me too. I mean, it's obviously, like you said, it's not the greatest of circumstances me being in here, but one thing I did learn, I think the last time we spoke was a lot about my recovery. And one thing I made an amends when I made my 9-step promises or my 9-step amends to my father. And that was that to show up when called upon. And when I got the news, it was a deep sense that I needed to be here and be with the family. And setting aside, I have my own personal things going on right now in my neck of the woods with my wife being 9 months pregnant right now. But show up when called. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
And I may mention that Aaron flew out on his birthday, his 32nd birthday, and we so wish that you had had a happier birthday, but things do seem to be improving a little bit. So, obviously, if please only share what you're comfortable sharing, but how is Dennis doing? What can you tell us?
So he, as the statement that was released said, that he did suffer a fall, and he is currently recovering in a Los Angeles hospital. I mean, that's public information at this point. What I can say as an update is there's reason for optimism. I know there's a lot of people out there. The amount of wishes and prayers that we've received from people is quite frankly overwhelming. But I mean, and the resources we have at our disposal, I cannot understate. The doctors have been amazing. There is reason for optimism. So I know a lot of people out there, especially I got some messages myself reaching out to me, very doom and gloom, very thinking it was the worst, but one thing we do know about my father, he's one of the most tenacious people on planet Earth. He has a very strong will. He's built like an ox, and
he is.
and as long as there's any inkling of fight within him, he's not going to give up no matter what. And his faith, his family, and quite frankly, his profession, drive him. I believe that to be doing as well as he is right now. Quite frankly, he's doing better than a lot of people expected him to be doing. That's something I can share. Some of the doctors are very surprised at how well he's doing, given the circumstances right now. So I didn't want to come on here and give a doom and gloom report. Yes, it's serious. Yes, it's going to be a long road, but there's no reason for anybody to be living in this sense of dread right now, as of today.
Good.
So yeah.
Thank God. Mm-hmm. Marissa and Alan.
She's been great. She was instrumental in the early care, getting him what he needed. So huge shout out. Thank God for Marissa.
She is a force.
Yeah.
And there was a prayer circle held for your father, which of course I attended, which was comprised of some of his closest friends. And Marissa got up and said that she is blown away by the healing power of the prayers. Mm-hmm. And I have seen, Ben Shapiro tweeted Ted Cruz tweeted, Michael Knowles, our colleagues here at Salem with massive followings. So the word is really getting out for prayers. And Marissa said at this prayer circle, ever since we have gone public and asked for the public's prayers, every single day he has gotten a little bit better. And I was just on the phone with a rabbi in Australia who has a huge congregation, and he said his entire synagogue is praying for Dennis. Yeah. Do you think the power of prayer is playing a role here in his improvement?
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting. So between my father, my brother, and myself, we all kind of derive our spiritual connection with God a little bit differently. I'm a big proponent of prayer. I believe that prayer, a lot of people struggle with the concept of it, but it's as simple as talking. You talk to something that you have a connection with, and if you don't have that connection yet, you throw it out into the ether, the spiritual bat signal, if you will, and you send it up there. And if it's not for you, it's for somebody else. So I believe in the power of prayer is one of the strongest forces in the universe, if not the strongest. It's because it's your direct line with our Creator. And you know, if you're Jewish, Hashem, Christian, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You know, my father's Jewish. A lot of people on social media recently, I even got a message from somebody a nasty message from somebody in regards to prayer because my father doesn't believe a certain thing. And I didn't respond to it, but I thought to myself, I'm like, this person is someone who needs to pray right now. This is someone who needs to pray. So this is someone who could benefit from a little bit of spiritual connection themselves, maybe, and then I pray for that person, you know. So the power of prayer cannot be understated whatsoever. God is good all the time. I say it almost every single day. God is good all the time. We don't know what God's plan is for us, but we know that there is a plan. And for people struggling, and myself, I struggle with this from time to time too, is like, do I understand God's will? No, and I'm okay with that, because if God is as good and immense of a being as we know him to, or we don't, or lack of knowledge of knowing him to be, but understand, then we're never going to fully understand what God is. I'm okay with that. All I got to do is keep putting my foot in front of the next and keep trying to make that connection. That's at least what my message is. And for everybody who's going to be listening to this, keep sending those prayers, because like Marissa said, and like I'm saying now, it seems to be working day by day.
Has your faith at all been shaken by what happened to your dad?
Absolutely not.
Why?
Like I said before, we don't understand God's plan, but there is a plan. I have faith in that. I can't let my faith get rocked by something just because it inconveniences my spiritual conditioning.
Boy, is that well said. That is so true. You know, your dad and I on Dennis and Julie talk about this all the time. We talk about God almost every episode. Yeah. We talk about prayer. And Dennis, I mean, I was in the car with him less than a week ago, and I asked him, I turned to him and I said, are there any, what was the way I put it? I said, are there any weak spots in your life? And he said, no. And I said, I know, that's kind of what I expected you to say. And he said, I have an amazing marriage. I have 2 amazing sons. I have amazing stepchildren, grandchildren. I have, a dream career. But he said, I know how lucky I am, and I know that could change. Mm-hmm. He literally said that to me days ago. And he lives it. I mean, and we just did a special episode of Dennis and Julie where I pulled some clips and played them and said, these, I think, were some of the highlights. And he is talking about how no one is immune from having life hit them. And I know he really lives that. I know he knew how lucky he was. And I know that he would still believe in God.
Well, he practices what he preaches. And
totally. He is the definition of the real deal.
I mean, I tweeted this out literally on the way over here, is, coupled with God is good all the time and my faith, the thing that's been rooting around in my head this entire time through this entire process since Tuesday is his emphasis on gratitude. His emphasis on gratitude, the attitude of gratitude. Like, I have to always be grateful for things in life because A, it could be taken away, but B, it grounds me further. And then when things do crop up like this, I'm able to navigate it a little bit better. Mm-hmm. But that's predicated, at least from my experience, because I can only speak from my experience of what I've seen work for myself and some for others, but mostly for myself. For this purpose, I'll talk about myself, is that it's predicated on my faith in something bigger than myself. I have to have that for gratitude to have its full effect.
I was talking about this with someone who asked me the question that I asked you. Has my faith in God been shaken by what happened to Dennis? And I also said no. And it's because of Dennis that I said no. And
why is that?
Because he has made me realize that no one is immune. And just because you are a good person doesn't mean that you are somehow able to escape the accidents and the tragedies that befall many of us in life, and that you're not entitled to have things always go well for you. We had a discussion where I said if someone really close to me was seriously hurt or there was some tragedy, I said, this is like a year ago, I was a little steps behind in my faith journey. I said, I don't know if I think I'd be angry at God. And Dennis really set me straight, in his kind and gentle way on the air, where he said, okay, so, if someone else is hit by a car, that wouldn't shake your faith in God. But if it's someone who's close to you, and that would happen, that would shake your faith. And he was totally right.
Because it gets so deeply personalized.
Yes, he was totally right. And he so applies all of his wisdom to himself. But a friend was asking me, how I fit all of this into my belief in God. And I said the best answer I could give, and I'd be so curious to hear this from you. And I've learned so much about God from you. Your whole ego acronym, edging God out, and God, good, orderly direction. I think of that almost every day.
For the record, those are not,
Right,
I can't take credit for that, but that's from a certain recovery fellowship.
Recovery fellowship, that's right. And I said, I think there's a permissive will of God and an active will of God. I think God allowed, and by the way, your dad would be so proud. This is such a Dennis and Julie conversation.
I figured it would go someplace
I
like
know,
this, yeah.
I figured it as well. And it's also beautiful because in both of our arguments, you can see your dad's influence on us. I think there's the permissive will of God and the active will of God. I think God gives us the free will to do good and do bad and be affected by goodness and badness. And so in that way, I think he permits evil, or he permits tragedy and bad things as part of our free will. But I think when it comes to goodness, I think there are times when there is an active will of God, where through the power of prayer and good actions, and when he would deem that it would maximize goodness in the world, I do think he has the power to intervene. And I think and hope that's what we're seeing right now with your dad's improvement. What do you think about this?
So I've heard so many arguments to both those cases, active and permissive. And for me, I think that when it comes to my greatest example that I could see that has worked in my life as well as so many others around me are angels.
Oh, tell me about that.
I mean, think about me. I was at the time I was a 23-year-old gutter punk kid from Los Angeles, meth addicted, alcoholic, and I go across the country, with a little bit of will, and I don't know where that piece of will came from. So right there, that could be God working directly in my life. It was one of my first interactions with God before I understood my connection with God was saying yes instead of my default, which was no, to go get some help. But once I was there were so many people that started cropping up into my life. One of them, in fact, just called me, Rabbi Yosef Lipsker from Chabad out in my area in Pennsylvania, who is 100% an angel in my life, who gave me my first job when I got sober, who took the chance on me, and another a halfway house manager that was put into my life. These people, I fully believe God had intervened and directed the course, the streams, if you will, of life to have our lives intersect, so that I'm able to. And they don't view it this way, but I can view it this way. And I think there's a level of subjectivity to this, but I think God is ultimately objective in his will and how he works in people's lives. When it comes to permissive, I mean, it's something that I would always say. The actions have consequences. There's a positive or a negative consequence to each action that you're going to take. So in that sense, yeah, God does allow us to make those decisions. Why wouldn't he? I mean, look at Adam and Chava, look at Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. I mean, like, the whole course of humanity got changed by the fruit being taken. But then again, fast forward back now to 2024. In this case scenario, I mean, I keep coming back to, like, I don't know why this is happening. None of us know why it's happening. But if it's time to walk what I've been talking in terms of my belief in my faith.
That is such a great point, because it's easy to have faith when things are going right. It's hard to have faith when things are going wrong.
Absolutely.
And this is when God is challenging us and going, okay, are you really living what you're thinking or what you're claiming to believe?
Are you walking around? Are you being truthful in what you're saying? Because I think that's one of the greatest disservices that you can do. I mean, we all know doing evil in God's name is the worst, but also, what's the word for it? There's a Christian phrase for it that's escaping me, but basically, like fake proselytizing, like not what you believe.
Cheap grace.
Basically. And I think that, like I can't sit here and not say what I believe when it comes to the situation. I can't sit here and, say, oh, everything's hunky-dory. But I also can't sit here and catastrophize it, because I don't believe either of those things. I believe it's a middle ground. I believe that the situation with my father right now, the facts on the ground remain. He's a strong individual. He's living in God's grace. We're living in God's grace. We're having this conversation right now in God's, just by God willing it to happen. And hopefully people can take away from it, some positive. And that's the essence of goodness, is trying to impart goodness on other people and helping them.
What do you think he's thinking right now about his situation?
I don't know if he's aware of what's going on, quite frankly. But I mean, hopefully, from what we know is that he's not really aware of much. We're trying to keep him. I'm trying to choose my words carefully here.
Of course.
Just because I don't know, I can't disclose too much of the specifics, but hopefully, I can't speculate as to what he's thinking. What I hope he's thinking is nothing right now. I hope he's just resting, and he's just letting his body heal.
How are you doing?
Some hours are better than others.
Are you okay?
Yeah. I told myself I wasn't gonna get emotional on this, and I won't. Probably will. I don't know. But no, it's tough. It is tough. My father, on a personal note, my father and I have had our ups and downs. We didn't get into too much of it, during our first. I think you were the first show I went on to after the Fireside Chat.
Really?
Yeah, you were the first person.
Oh, I wear that as a badge of honor.
Yeah, you were the first
that was such a great show, but I have to tell you, both Aaron and I thought we did horribly.
Yeah, we texted each other afterwards.
We texted each other. I said, "I'm sorry, I was horrible." He goes, "I'm sorry, I was horrible." I thought he was incredible. And you know what? By the way, Dennis listened to it and he was like, "You both are great."
Yeah. Yeah.
Go on. I'm sorry.
No worries. For myself, my father and I've had our ups and downs. There was a period where I hated him. I don't think I've said that publicly, on my show or anybody else's. There was a time where I hated him. I despised him. And the reason why I say that is because look at us now.
Oh, you're so close.
We've gone from a period that we didn't talk. My parents got divorced when I was 13 years old. It was a tough time for any kid. Divorce is tough. It's awful, regardless. But it's 13 was a tough age. And I had a lot of misconceptions about what was going on. And I fed into it. And my father had a very interesting way of parenting, which I've come to understand is probably the best way that I've found. And I plan to use the same method with my children. But at the time, we didn't get, he always had love for me. He always cared about me, but I distanced myself from him. I resented him. I felt anger. And all of those things seem so minuscule when something like this happens. But I will say this. That through that process, it's made me so much more grateful for our relationship now. We talk on the phone 5 days a week. That's what we do. I try to catch him right before he comes to the show. I'm on the East Coast 3 hours early, so I'm getting done with my stuff right as he's, getting in the car, and we talk on the way. And I always try to keep my eyes open for God winks, as I call them. And every time that my father,
what are those?
Where it's so obvious that that God has going back to what we're talking about, God intervening, where God has intervened actively to remedy a situation, to fix it, to benefit his children, in that case being my father and myself. There is, between my story, between our relationship, between addiction, between recovery, whatever it is, between the ups and the downs, it makes more sense to believe in anything than to believe in nothing when it comes to God.
Yep.
It was so improbable. And that's why I try to do him proud every day, by my work, by what I say, by my own show, and in my life, in my marriage, and hopefully with my kids as well.
I am not saying this to flatter you. Sean knows how true this is. He is so proud of you. He talks about you all the time. And when he does, you just, now I'm tearing up. You can just see the pride in his face. And you can see how happy he is that your relationship has evolved now to the place where it is. Absolutely. And he'll say to me all the time, he'll say, I have to tell you, Aaron, I've only known you for 4 years or 5 years now, and hearing stories of what you were like when you were younger, it's like, it's not even the same person, but he will just say, God God has been so good to me. I can't believe that I have such a close relationship with Aaron. And he is so proud of your show, AP Unfiltered, no space between AP and Unfiltered. He is so proud that you keep Shabbat every Friday. And he is just thrilled that you're going to be a dad.
Yeah. No.
I mean, seriously, he talks about you all the time.
Yeah. No, and the thing is, and I don't want to make this all about myself, because it's about the whole family. I mean, my brother David, he's in town too. Like the fact that all of us have come back together. I mean, like, and this is sort of like, I think this is what Dad would have wanted, is us to talk about more what we are, is like about how God works in our lives.
Oh yeah, he'd be proud of this one.
100%. This is the crux of it, is that all of us coming back together, and I'm sure there are stories of people who are listening to this now who can identify with this as well, of whether it's fractured families, divorce, addiction, whatever it may be, to be able to come back together. And like those are those God winks, is when you're able to see it, when you're able to recognize it. And it's a funny thing about it, is that the more you're able to recognize when God is working in your life, the stronger your connection gets, and the more that you tend to see those things start happening, because I fully believe that God is always working in people's lives, 100%, probably hundreds of times a day, but we don't see it. We can't catch it. Dad's whole thing is clarity. Mine's reality. We have to live in reality. And if we're doing that, we're trying to look at things clearly. And if we're looking at things clearly, we start to see where God is working, which just strengthens it, which then makes us better people, because we're seeing like, oh. And then when there's that level of accountability, because I'm a big proponent of accountability and responsibility, but when you feel that you're accountable to something bigger than yourself, it's a game changer. A lot of those behaviors that might have caused a lot of strife and tough times in your life, those start to wean out a little bit more. They start to go away. Even as something as simple as, I keep going back to recovery, because it's the best, anchor point that I know, is there are so many behaviors, whether it's making my bed, whether it's, taking the trash out before the wife asks me, or doing a lot of these things. And it's like, when I I can catch myself and recognize, hey, this is not how you used to think. That's what I'm talking about.
I really believe that your dad is divinely inspired, and I've told him this before. I mean, you read his Torah commentaries sitting over there, and you cannot help.
He still has another one to do. He's got to do Leviticus.
I know. We gotta tell him. He's got to get better fast.
It's not the run of the mill one of the books. It's Leviticus. It's a tough one.
He told me once. He said that he drags out the writing of those commentaries, even though he's so fast. It's actually insane, because he knows that God wants him to complete them. So he drags it out. But I truly, 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 as your dad always says, hook me up to a polygraph or a lie detector test. Yeah. I really believe he's divinely inspired. Being his son, what was it like to grow up with him? And how, from your perspective, do you process the immense role that he plays in other people's lives?
Well, I think I've shared this before, is one thing he probably told me more than anything is, I am not your friend, I'm your father.
Sounds right.
And I hated it. I couldn't stand it. But another thing too, he said, you'll understand when you're older. Now, I know a lot of parents say that, but the amount of, one thing I am very aware of is that, he brought certain things to the table in terms of being a father. Some people, teach their kids how to, change a light bulb, or they take them dirt biking. My father taught me how to think, how to talk. And granted, boozing and drugging for so long, it clouded it. But now that I'm sober, it's like it escalated at such a high pace. But growing up with him, it was I always wanted more. And that's like the selfish side of me. I was like, why can't you take me dirt biking? Why can't you do this type of stuff? My friends are going, all this type of stuff. But it's like, at the end of the day, what he imparted on me was so much more valuable, but I wasn't able to see it at the time until my head got clear, until I got a connection with God myself. And then it exploded. And that's why I think one of the reasons why we're so close now. But every relationship has its ups and downs. It's just the reality of it.
How do you feel about it now?
I understand that everything happens for a reason. That's been kind of like the overarching theme of this, is everything happens for a reason, even though we're unable to see it. Everything that I wanted wasn't in my best interest maybe at the time. And, I feel like that's part of humanity in general, is like, we want so many things, but God will always give us what we need, not necessarily what we want. And a lot of the time it comes in the form of challenges. It comes in the form of having to, one of the always things, I'm like, never pray for something you don't want. Like, if I'm praying for patience, you better be sure God is going to give me some situation in my life that's going to require me to practice patience.
Yes, the challenge. That's what we were saying
Absolutely.
earlier, the challenge. You know, I feel your dad's influence. I see it in my life all the time, literally all day, every day. And I was telling him recently that when I pray, I'll start by giving thanks to God, and then I'll say, God, I'm not trying to make you my cosmic butler right now.
Yep.
That's the Dennis-ism. I'm not trying to make you my cosmic butler, but I would really hope for XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just amazing to see what a role he plays.
Mm-hmm. I mean, how long did you guys meet? How many years ago?
I met him 4 years ago, and I was in college. I actually, Aaron, this summer went to the Vatican and repented for joining the Harvard College Democrats my first few days in college. And it was COVID and BLM, and I was so disillusioned with the left. Mm-hmm. And I went online and Googled, what do conservatives think about police? And I found PragerU. And then I found your dad, and I started listening to the podcast of the radio show. And by the way, I've said this before. This is before I ever met Sean and ever came into this world. 3 things bothered me. Your dad hits the mic all the time. They call him murder on broadcast. He hits the mic all the time. Sometimes he'll sort of whisper. He'll bring his voice really low. Mm-hmm. And I'll be like, speak up, you brilliant man. And then I could never hear Sean, and I've always heard Triple G. But from the second I heard him, mm-hmm. I was like, this guy is so intelligent. He is speaking the truth. He has such common sense. And this may sound self-aggrandizing because all those 3 things are compliments. And what I'm about to say, again, may sound like I'm hyping myself up. I thought, this guy is me. Like, we're so similar.
That's not even self-aggrandizing. That's how people identify with people. That's connection. You are gravitated towards people who can that you feel are your tribe. Find your tribe type mentality. And,
yes.
Whether it's like, I always want to surround myself with people who, like, my whole goal with like doing a show isn't that I can carry I hope that I can carry a message.
You can.
But my hope is that, listen, if I can't put it into the correct words, someone else has that, like, oh, that's what I'm thinking.
Yep.
And then they could extrapolate on that, and maybe they are able to touch someone's life. Like, that's the mission, plant the seed and see where it goes. Let it go.
I think one of the things that has made your dad such a weapon is his yeshiva. I am not Jewish, but I want to send my boys to yeshiva, because what he does is he takes the news of the day and he applies the timeless, universal, eternal wisdom of the Torah to the news. And people are like, oh my God, how does this guy know so much? Mm-hmm. And that is what makes him a weapon. And I had never encountered anything like that before. And then meeting him for the first time, I was so struck by how similar he is off the air to on the air. Not similar, the same.
Yeah.
He literally has no difference. I mean, I was listening to him the other day on the Fireside Chat, and I was like, the way that he speaks on the Fireside Chat is exactly the way he speaks just on the phone or in real life.
Yeah.
There is no difference. And I just couldn't believe that he was so real and genuine, and he just lives exactly what he preaches. I mean, and he goes to synagogue this is the stuff, like, he literally lives his life with every way he's saying on the air. He observes Shabbat every Friday. I'm there. He goes to synagogue every Saturday. I mean, all the time he's looking up fountain pen ink and reading and smoking cigars. Like, he is the guy.
Yeah, he's a total dork in real life. He's a total dork in real life. No.
Sean's nodding.
Yeah.
He is kind of a total dork in real life.
He's the exact same way as he portrays himself on air. And that's the thing, is because he's a mission-based human being.
Yes.
This is not... A lot of people go into, public speaking, or they go into different things, for different motives. But my father, from day one, I mean, and even as a kid, it was like, one thing is, in the depths of me not liking the guy, when I was younger and, my teenage angst, I never was able to point the finger and say he's a phony. I was never able to say that he's faking this.
Boy, that is powerful.
Yeah. Everything.
That is really powerful.
Every one of his messages, he believes. He's researched into infinity. Has lived experience. I mean, I think one of the ways he was able to, like, the battle of good versus evil. I mean, like, I talk about it on my show. That is his show, and how when he went to the Soviet Union when he was younger, and he started to understand that the greatest evil of the time like was the antithesis of good, and just like such a simple concept like that, to be able to then extrapolate out and figure out the nuances of like, why do people do this and why do people do that, and if people do A, then what's the positive reaction that we could bring to that?
Right.
And that's what he's made his mission, is to identify evil and combat it. That has been his mission.
What is your favorite insight of his, if you have any, or favorite? I mean, he has the missing tile syndrome. He has the mirrors theory. So many things.
There's a lot right now, and I mean, there's like you said, there's missing tile. There's all the classics. There's a lot of those, but I mean, I don't think I honestly don't think I have a favorite one. I don't think I have a favorite one. It's kind of like when so many get bombarded upon you for so long, they all kind of run together. But what's interesting is I might not be able to name a handful now, but when a situation crops up in my life, it's there.
It's on a multi-daily basis.
And it helps guide people. And I think that's something that like a lot of people, like, once again, going back to, what we were talking about earlier, is like people, when the outpouring of support that we've seen from him, it's like it's you could tell people are being real with it as well, because when he's not being a phony and he's being real, and the people who take what he says and his messages from his broadcast, they begin living those principles. They begin becoming real themselves, searching for clarity, right? So that when something like this happens, you can hear the pain that in their tweet messages, to the family, or their phone calls or anything like that. You can hear that. And if anything, if I could say, if anybody could take anything away from this, just at the end of the day, is like, don't worry. Send your prayers. Take it a day at a time. He's in God's hands right now, and the best doctors that we can get our hands on. But don't worry. Like, he wouldn't want everybody out here worrying. Don't do that. Live your life. Put a smile on. Happiness is a moral obligation when you're around others. That's probably my favorite one. There we go.
See,
exactly.
One.
Like I said,
despair is a sin.
Yeah. But exactly. Right. Like I said, when the time comes, one of them will pop up in my head. With his phrases. But that is my favorite, actually. I think moods are infectious.
I think that's a great note to end on. I do want to turn to Sean. I don't mean to put him on the spot, but Sean, you've worked with Dennis every single day for 20 years. You've listened to hours and hours and hours and hours, probably like tens of thousands of hours of radio. What's the greatest thing you've learned from Dennis?
Oh, I'm like Aaron. I couldn't boil it down to just one. I know when he says, if you need something done, ask a busy person.
That's your one?
That's
a pretty
great
good one.
No, I mean, he's got the macro ones. If you love God, you must hate evil. Which it's hard to delineate between what comes from the Bible or the Torah and what comes from Dennis. It's so intertwined. But like you guys were saying, it happens throughout the day. There'll be something, and it's almost like what would Dennis say? And I can't put into words the amount of knowledge and joy and wisdom and laughs that I have shared with him over the years. It's changed who I am as a human being, and I don't want this to sound like a memoriam or anything. I mean, the guy is coming back. I have believed that from day one. It's going to be a long road. He's a tough dude, and if God is willing to heal his body to the point that Dennis can take it the rest of the way, I know he will be back, and we will talk to him again, and I believe that.
And that's what Aaron said at the beginning. I mean, he really, between his family and his synagogue and God and his profession, if there's anyone who has the will to get through this, it's Dennis. Yep. But I think it's good for us to talk about him and to really honor him in this time. Yeah,
he's there for people all the time, in the best way that, the message that, the family will send out to everybody is, the best way you could help is to send prayers.
Yes.
That is the best way.
And they're working.
Yes, they are.
Aaron, thank you.
Absolutely.
And I know I speak for many when I say give your dad a big kiss for us.
I will. I'm gonna head over there now.
I know you are. Well, we'll let you go. Thank you all so much for joining. And you can email me as always at julie@julie-hartman.com. I'm laughing because I'm seeing out of the corner of my eye a little pillow thing. Aaron's looking like, what the hell is he talking about? My pillow. I know you've been thinking about it for so long.
It's literally been, what I've been thinking about this entire time.
Yes. Of course. Well, Aaron, right now you can get a standard classic MyPillow available for just $14.88. A savings that is too good to pass up, and there's a limit of 10 per customer. So don't wait to take advantage of this great deal now with the promo code Hartman, Hartman. You know, when your dad first heard my last name, he thought I was a Jew. And he always says he has to remind himself that I am not a Jew. I'm Julie. Right now, you can also take home a 4-piece kitchen set for my Jewish-sounding last name if you use the promo code Hartman. That's only $25. Enjoy their new mattress topper starting at just $99.99, or pick up the luxurious MyPillow bed sheets starting at $49.98. Visit MyPillow.com or call 1-800-566-6745 and use the promo code Hartman to unlock big discounts. Again, don't miss out. Order today. You can get the standard MyPillow for just $14.88. As I said, you can always email me at julie@julie-hartman.com. And please check out AP Unfiltered. As I always say, no space. One time I was looking it up. I'm like, Where is it? AP Unfiltered, which is Aaron's podcast.
Yeah, there's a little bit of changes happening actually on the show, if I may. Just shamelessly shill my own show.
Please, go ahead.
We're usually uploads. We're usually pre-records.
Yep.
But as of last week, for the election, we ended up going live. We do 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern.
Great.
On Rumble only.
Oh, good.
Rumble only. Show is recorded. Clips go up afterwards at separate times over on
I love
YouTube.
that you're transitioning to Rumble.
Yeah, I've always been on Rumble. I actually started on Rumble, then I went to YouTube. But I decided I'm only gonna do the live show on Rumble. But shorts go out 10 a.m., videos go out at 5 p.m., and live streams are 1 to 2 p.m.
fantastic.
And it's gonna be going under a new name, if I may.
Really? What
Yes.
name?
Well, the live show, and I'm probably gonna rebrand the entire thing, is the Aaron Prager Show.
I like it. I really like it. There's a reason why everyone does that for me. Well, thank you,
A little bit
Aaron.
easier. Yes.
We'll
no,
see.
thank you.
We'll see you soon. Take care, everyone.